Social 30-1, today's topic is totalitarianism. We are actually in chapter 5. We study totalitarianism as a case study of what can go wrong when you reject liberalism. So, when societies reject liberalism, they could culminate with a totalitarian state. Uh, we're going to look at totalitarianism in the former Soviet Union and Germany. And so, if you think back to your notes on Stalin that we looked at last week, that is totalitarianism in the former Soviet Union. So his 5-year plans, his forced collectivization, the purges, the terror tactics, the gulags, the mass murder, that is all features of totalitarianism. So we've technically already got example number 1 already under our belts when looking at totalitarianism. So what is left is we'll talk about the theory behind totalitarianism today, and later on we'll actually look at Nazi Germany as one further example of a totalitarian regime. You should try and say it once to yourself, totalitarianism. It can be tough to say. So there are a few features that come to mind when we think about totalitarianism, or I guess that should come to mind. Number 1 is going to be one official ideology. So this is not a regime that allows for multiple political parties, for even a political opposition at all. In a totalitarian state, there's one accepted ideology, and you have to adhere to it, or else. They claim that this regime would offer a perfect society, and that is very debatable. I would say probably no, but they're trying to sell this regime to the population, and so you sell it as the ideal society, but they never were, and they aren't today. By the way, as we talk about totalitarianism, understand that this is a very rare and unique form of government. This doesn't happen often. There are a lot of dictatorships on planet Earth, but very few of them get to the degree of being what we would call totalitarian. This is rare, doesn't happen often, and you'll see why by the end of the lesson. One single mass political party. So in the former Soviet Union, it was the Communist Party. In Germany in the 1930s, it's going to be the Nazi Party. But not just anyone can join this political party. Membership is controlled, it is very limited, it's elitist. They want it to be elitist because the more people they allow into the party, the more they need to share their power. They want to keep power centralized. So not just anyone can apply for party membership and get it. So I guess you could say they're very fascist in nature. Well, they are fascist in nature. They all employ a secret police force, and they need this to track down traitors, to threaten people, to get rid of enemies of the state. Basically, they need a secret police force to get rid of their political opposition. And so in the former Soviet Union, the secret police force originally was the Cheka, and it eventually became the GPU. And over time, the KGB. In Nazi Germany, the secret police force was the Gestapo. Uh, and maybe you need some help. See if I can type this in for you. The Gestapo. Whoops. Gestapo, like that. Secret police force in Germany. So these were people that would infiltrate society. You didn't know who they were. You didn't know where they were, and they were around to sniff out treason, to arrest people and take them away if they threatened the Nazi government. Um, Secret police force. They act above the rule of law. They don't answer to anyone really. Item number 4 is the media. You gotta control the media if you are a totalitarian regime. In other words, you can't let people know there's a better world outside of their state. You can't let people know there are political alternatives to what they've got in this totalitarian government. So you must control the media. So the media today would involve things like obviously TV, radio, newspapers, but also the internet and social media. In the 1930s, the media was much easier to control because all you really had to contend with would be the newspapers and radio. And you could control those two things. Really hard today to control the TV, radio, the internet, social media, and so on. You can't control all those things. So I would argue that I'm not sure there is a totalitarian regime today, maybe North Korea, maybe, just because it's so hard to control the media. And if you can control the media, you can you can distribute what is known as propaganda. I'm sure you've heard of the term propaganda before. Propaganda spelt like that. Propaganda is a one-sided message, and the government would feed its population propaganda. They would not allow for political alternatives. And if I give you enough propaganda, I will over time indoctrinate you. If I give you enough of the one-sided message, sooner or later you're going to start to believe the propaganda, and then you will have been indoctrinated. So the Nazis gave German citizens a lot of propaganda that was anti-Jewish in nature. And over time, people began to believe the propaganda. They turned on the Jews. They had become indoctrinated. The Soviet Union would have indoctrinated its population against capitalism, against the West, against the kulaks and the Ukrainians. And you saw what happened because of that. You could call controlling the media as well a form of censorship. If you only allow the message that you want them to get as a government, you are censoring the media. Got to control the media. Totalitarianism 101. Direction of popular discontent. I talked a bit about this when we looked at source number one for totalitarianism. All totalitarian regimes will scapegoat. They will direct popular discontent. In other words, totalitarian dictatorships don't just happen in any country. They happen in a country where something is really wrong, where there is an economic recession or an economic depression. There's maybe political upheaval. I guess where these regimes can take over, there's a lot to be angry about. Something would really be wrong. Turmoil, whatever it might be. And so as a leader of this regime, you don't want your population turning on you as the leader, or you don't want the population turning on itself in a civil war that would weaken your state. So what you'll do is you'll pick a target group, usually a minority group, and you'll scapegoat them. You'll say to your population, look, if you want to be mad at someone, be mad at them. You want to kill someone, then kill them. And you're just focusing their anger, their rage on something other than you. And I spelt scapegoating wrong, make sure you fix it, and other than each other. There's always a centrally controlled economy. It doesn't need to mean that it's a communist economy. It could be, but the government will direct the economy, be it fascism, be it communism, whatever it might be. The government focuses and controls the economy. And finally, number seven, a big one, you suppress the principles of liberalism. Duh, like obviously you are. So there's going to be no free speech. You're not allowing basic human rights and freedoms to everybody. And the government puts itself above the rule of law. You're suppressing the principles of liberalism. So these regimes don't happen often because there's a lot that you've got to accomplish. And the tough one would be controlling the media today. Hard to do. So there aren't many totalitarian regimes out there. There's a lot of dictatorships, but very few get to this level. We'll look at two brands of totalitarianism. Number one, communism, which we've actually already looked at. So if you think back to the Stalin era, and I guess the Soviet Union, that would be example of totalitarianism number one, an example of a communist totalitarian dictatorship. And the other one we'll look at will be fascism. Um, you could study Japan, you could study Italy at this time. We'll take a good look at Germany in the aftermath of World War I as another further example of a totalitarian regime and a society that rejected liberalism. And the reason why we do this is that you're going to learn what can happen when a totalitarian regime takes over and how you need to be vigilant as a citizen and that you would never allow this to happen.